Hi, everyone. It's the Game Changing Work Show live here with Roxana and myself, and with special guest Zoryna. Hi.
Hello.
And we have a great topic for this week, which is all about the trauma informed approach. Did I say that right? Not backwards, right? Yeah, trauma informed approach. My brain today to help with collective intelligence and leadership, which I think is a really great topic for these days. And I'm so happy that you came to join us and talk about this topic. And what got you interested in this?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. First of all, I'm absolutely delighted to be on your show. Well, I'm very curious about people generally speaking, and I've been like this all my life. So I wanted to understand people's behavior, their thinking styles, and what makes them motivated. So I was constantly paying a lot of attention to things like psychology, behavior science, and other stuff. And then, of course, a pandemic came. And I got involved in community resilience work in the local area where I live. And so I started looking at what do we know about dealing with disasters? What do we know about challenging times and how to be effective during challenging times? So I came across of this concept of trauma-informed approach to leadership and management, which is relatively new in our sort of world of consultancy and
Yeah.
management and leadership development. And the more I learned about it, the more interested I became. And now I'm sort of promoting this idea, promoting this concept, because it can make a significant difference for all of us, leaders and those who we lead, as we are getting out of this pandemic and we are heading towards the post-pandemic recovery.
Awesome. And for those of you that are watching right now, you're probably guessing, if you're not familiar, what trauma informed approach is. What is it? Enlighten us.
Yes, well, first of all, it is about understanding that now, particularly now, after the pandemic that is still ongoing and in many countries is not under control by any means, on a collective community and individual level, we are experiencing trauma, quite
Yeah.
significant trauma. It's over a year now that we have all those experiences. And when we are traumatized, we behave in a different way. Our brain is constantly in a state of threat, which makes it more difficult for us to act rationally, to cooperate, and do a lot of things that we used to take for granted. And so, trauma-informed approach means that we need to understand that this is what is happening. And we also need to plan our work for quite a long time now with this in mind, to make sure that we are not re-traumatizing people, that all our policies, all our processes, our behavior as leaders take into account traumatic experiences and emotional responses that people have as a result of all experiences they had. If you want, I can share a slide now.
Yeah,
If
let's take a look.
Sure.
And
Let's
I
go
see we have
to.
some as you're pulling that up, we do have some people on LinkedIn Live. Hey, let us know that you're there, and comment on any questions or any interests that you have on the topic today.
Yeah, so there is a number of research was undertaken, and some of you may have heard about trauma-informed approach within sort of caring profession, medicine, or social services. But now this concept is going quite strong and more prominent and recognized in other aspects as well. So what does it mean for us as leaders, managers, to use trauma-informed approach? It means that we are deliberately, intentionally fostering safety, including psychological safety in the workplace. Remember, I said that our brain, when we are traumatized, is in a constant state of threat. we can't function really well in this state. So creative, safe environment in the workplace will go some way towards helping us to calm down. Then it is about building trust and transparency in the workplace, in our actions, in our decision making. Because again, when we are seeing something where we believe that we are not treated fairly, where we can't trust our leaders, our situation, then again, it enhances our already heightened state of stress and anxiety associated with this trauma. It is about creating trauma-informed approach is also about creating peer support network, facilitating it. And actually, it is quite challenging where we are working remotely. Mostly, some people are still sort of having examples of hybrid working where they come to the office from time to time, but experience is very different. So finding the way how this peer support could be facilitated in the hybrid or virtual environment.
I love this. And just to kind of point is, even though that this bubbled up probably more so when you're thinking about it from COVID, but I look at it as something that can be highly useful when I'm thinking of organizations going through big changes, right? So I've been in Agile. Oh, did we lose Zoryna?
We did.
Well, wait for her to come back.
She's back. She's back. She's back. There she is.
So, anyway, so what I was saying is, in organizations that are going through transformations, that's big change. And everything that you had on the bullet points is so related to what we deal with when it comes to these big changes, because it creates a lot of trauma at different levels with individuals, right? They might be questioning their job. They don't know their role anymore, or they're being asked to do something that may go against their personal core values, right? There's a lot of things that we can add to the bucket. And so this is so powerful and useful when big changes are happening. I love it.
I think the reason why I love it is also because it puts a name on it. And I think a lot of us are not even aware that we have been traumatized, because we were trying to, and this is what I see with the managers and the leaders that I work with sometimes. It's we have so much pressure on ourselves, and we got used to living with that kind of pressure. It's just another way of keeping ourselves busy, and coping with the situation helps us, survive and potentially think that we will be able to thrive. But we don't realize that we've actually been traumatized. And I think the minute we start putting a name on it and understand that this is what's been happening, that's when we can also help the others around us. Because that's the thing. It starts with ourselves, and then we can replicate on the teams that we work with. So what you just said with, having that kind of safety and psychological safety, especially, that comes from actually understanding, hey, we've all been traumatized one way or another, and we have a safe space to discuss about it, to share the experience, and to start building from there. This is crucial.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And actually, all those principles that you can see, they're not my invention. And I would like to acknowledge that they were created, they were popularized by Dr. Ludmila Praslova. I know that we have a lot of people in the audience through the LinkedIn. So find this lady, follow her. She posts absolutely incredible insights into all topics about human behavior, about diversity, diversity, about inclusion. I sort of every day go to LinkedIn just to look at what she's publishing there, and this is based on the work she has published. So if we will go to collaboration and mutuality as well, sort of next on the list there, they're important because we are social creatures, aren't we? We need collaboration. We also need to feel that we are part of something much bigger, that we have some common purpose and we are achieving something. And also, being honest, we like doing something good for others.
Yeah.
Mutuality.
I love how you say purpose, right?
Yeah.
It almost, lately, you know how something becomes popular and it feels a little cliche when we start talking about purpose-led now?
Yeah.
Even though it is important. Because what you're saying is it's that human connection about everything. And organizations are realizing when they're trying to shift cultures, right? That purpose-led is really what's going to connect everyone when you need to get something done. And all these changes that are happening, especially the article that I posted yesterday about emergent requirements. I can completely see how this could be so helpful when you are having these big changes that are emergent, and you think about the trauma-informed approach for leadership. And then there's the other aspect that you were talking about when we first introduced this topic of collective intelligence. So we're all in a system of systems, right? Everything is a system. What does that look like in a trauma-informed approach?
Yes, thank you. It's a very good point. Many of us have heard about collective intelligence. It's a sort of concept of phenomenon where people are coming together, they're working together, and they're able to produce much better solution and solve problems than each one of them could do individually. You know how it is, we probably all had experiences where we work with our team on some exciting project, and it's almost like we are all thinking the same thought. Which is emergent. We can finish each other's sentences, and we have those light bulb moments all the time. This is a state where we are coming to a state of collective intelligence and can benefit from it. But in order for collective intelligence to emerge, there are certain conditions have to be present. And I will stop sharing this because it's sort of, we're talking about different subject now. So what are those conditions? First of all, we need to make sure that people are able to contribute. Everyone is able to contribute into discussion, into problem solving, team activity. And this is where trauma-informed leadership about inclusion, creating psychological safety comes in. Then we also need to make sure that our teams are diverse. Our teams have people from with different experiences, and all kinds of diversity, all aspects of diversity is present. The more the merrier, the better it is. Because research which was undertaken by Woolley and colleagues in 2010 shows this is one of the keys for emerging collective intelligence. And of course, we need also to foster emotional intelligence and emotional sensitivity, so that we can read what is happening with other people. We can read their facial expression, their body language, tonality of voice, all those things, and get insights from those. As it happened, women are not bad at it. So another sort of condition for collective intelligence is have more women in your teams. When you
Did you hear that, folks?
it's true. Research is there, evidence is there. Woolley and colleagues, 2010. Research is about collective intelligence. So there is hard evidence. It's not just that us three ladies came to try to convert.
It's diverse. It just creates the more diversity, right? If you have an imbalance, what happens when things are imbalanced, right?
Well, when things are imbalanced, one of the issues could be, and this is a real hindrance to collective intelligence, when discussions could be dominated by one or
Yeah.
two people, where people can refrain from sharing their ideas. And who is losing? Everyone is losing in this
Yeah.
situation. It's not going to be collective intelligence. We are not going to benefit from it. We still will be able to solve problems, probably, but not necessarily as well as if we benefit from this phenomenon.
Oh, more women. Hi, Brian. Yep. See, he's seeing it. Now, I used to work with Brian many moons ago, and he definitely is a great manager that he is. Now, I can just imagine what he does for his team. Now, one of the pragmatic questions would probably be is, okay, trauma-informed approach. I would love to add this type of leadership and get this into my teams. How do I start?
Well, I think it will be useful to have a little bit of reading around the subject because a lot has been published. If you won't connect with me on LinkedIn, there will be an article in my profile, flagged in my profile, which I wrote a couple of months ago now, which has links to some of the research and other articles which are available online. As I said, please do follow Dr. Ludmila Praslova because she published amazing stuff. And just think about yourself, about your practice, what you want to achieve. Be curious about people, be sensitive, and be intentional in terms of supporting people, helping them to flourish. And if you see somebody who is really quiet, not engaging very much, be curious enough to find out why is that. Is it because it's their style very reflective, or there is something that is worrying them, and that is why they are not engaging?
So in a highly virtual, when people are remote right now, you have to be intentional about that because it's not like you can walk a room and feel what it's feeling like or seeing what people are doing, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to be an option. So if you're a leader and you are trying to really implement this type of approach, you have to be intentional and do deliberate check-ins.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does include not only during the team meeting where you can look whether people have their cameras on or not, it's another matter, but it's about having contact beyond those formal settings of video
Yeah.
conferences and checking up on people and again being curious and showing your support that you're not noisy, you're asking because you want to help, you want to support. And the more you know appropriate information about people, which they're prepared to share with you, the better you are able to understand their circumstances and offer them support if they require. But equally, through doing those checks, you may discover somebody who feels that actually they need more opportunities, they need more challenges, they're ready to take on more tasks because maybe working in a virtual environment is something that comes naturally and easy for them. So maybe they can help others as well because it's about collaboration and mutuality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was wondering, because I hear you talking, and I love it, and we talk so much right now about the people approach and the people focus and how it's absolutely the people, those who are going to take us to get the results that we want, and this need to be more focused on how they're feeling, how they're thinking, so that they can get into that state of doing, because sometimes it's the thinking and the feeling that don't allow us to get into the doing, or
Or
we're just
the doing
halfway
is
through.
not really what we want to do, and it's
Exactly.
emotionally driven.
Exactly. So, but I talk to a lot of people right now who would want to do something more for their teams, and it's hard for them to make the case to that executive level of, hey, I need some budget so that I can do this for my team, because we're not in a shiny place right now. So, and it's hard for them to sometimes to make the case of, how do we start talking about that, and why is this important? Why would we even want to go there when it's not the usual business?
Or
And
the
I can't
time.
or the time, or we don't have the resources, or we have so many things to do, and this just comes as on top of everything else that we have to do. And I guess also because it's the trauma informed approach, so it's not a comfortable discussion to approach, even,
It's deep.
right?
Yeah.
It's so deep and it's so vulnerable. So what did you find when you talk to people about it? What do you say to them so
Or
that
what
they
do
can
leaders
actually
do?
make the case for it?
Right? Are they open to want to approach this? I mean, what have you
Exactly.
experienced?
Well, as it happened over the last 6 months, a bit longer, I was working with quite a few leaders in different organizations, and they are actually fully aware of those people who I worked with anyway. They were fully aware that something is not right. They would like to do the right thing by their people.
Awesome.
They would like to make sure that their people happy, because they understand happy workforce, supported workforce is very productive, very creative, very flexible, committed, all the qualities we need as we are emerging from the pandemic. And of course, there is so much research which show when people are engaged and people are well in the workplace, their productivity is great. If people are not engaged, if they are preoccupied with other things, if they are not supported, we have phenomenon of presenteeism, I think it's called, where people are at work, but they're not productive. They're unable to do things. So at the end of the day, for many companies, the bottom line, financial figures, strongest argument. And there is enough information for every country of the world to show that investing in well-being, in wellness, in support into employees gives very good return. I think, if I remember correctly, one of the research did show that well-being wellness program on the workplace did show about 1 to 10 return on investment.
Yeah, and I think that's important to show the connection. As you're running a business, you're always doing, trying to balance what you need to do and run the business, right, at the same time. And if you can see that type of information to make an informed decision, it's not about you not caring. It's about what can we do, and we can and stay in existence, right? Because you're still a business. One of the things, as we're talking about the subject, I do have to acknowledge is, what about the leader themselves, right? We always talk about leadership starting within. Anybody try the trauma-informed approach for themselves, right? Because they probably are going through trauma too, right?
It's actually an amazing question, Veronica, and thank you for asking it. I think leaders, many leaders, not all, they believe they should not show their vulnerability. They should cope because they're in leadership position. And sometimes maybe they're afraid to recognize all those things in them. And actually, I have an experience in the UK where I'm located. We have a national coaching and mentoring program which was set up by the government and number of organizations in order to support leaders in local government who are involved in response to the pandemic. And I'm one of the resilience coaches there. So I worked with chief executive director level people who asked for support through this program because they found it very difficult. And they were worried about everyone else, but not about themselves.
And you're no good to others if you're not good to yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but when we are in the state of trauma, we can't think rationally, can't we?
No,
we
you can't.
We are running on this adrenaline and cortisol in different situations.
Survival mode.
Survival mode, and as leaders in a position of responsibility, they're very, very concerned about their workforce. They're thinking about support methods for their workforce. And only at some point when they became aware that support is available for them as well, they started receiving this support. And the feedback from people was really positive, because it, as a minimum, it helped them to recognize they are as human as others. They are also traumatized, and they need to do exactly what you said. They need to replenish their own vessel if they want to share the contents with everyone else.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
Brian, you say you think you have an uphill battle with those in charge if you cannot allow yourself to be vulnerable with them. As Brene, you like Brene Brown too?
Yeah.
I know all of us do. You can't be brave without being vulnerable, and that is so true. And you wonder how many behind closed doors or at home when no one can see you that you're probably breaking down and crying or having a beer, like that downtime of so stressed out that you're trying to hold it together for everyone else in your team and being the strong person. And no one really looks to say, okay, what are you going through?
Yeah, and that's such a great point. And we actually had this this discussion in my group with people where they were saying, it's hard for me to be vulnerable in front of my team. And then we said, okay, so what does vulnerable mean? Like, okay, so if I'm worried, I'm not going to tell them that I'm worried. I'm going to try to find some positive things that we can all think about. And then I asked them, okay, why? Why do you have to do it? Why is it you that has to come with the positives when just by saying, you know what, today I feel worried because I'm worried about us not being able to meet the deadline, us not being able to have the resources. I feel this way, and get that sigh of relief from everybody else on the team who feels the same, or who feels somehow, they have a related feeling to that. And suddenly the discussion opens up so much just because you said, you know what, I'm worried about this today. And then you'll have everybody like, oh,
Yeah.
me too.
I think of like a movie, right, where you have these
It is.
scenes, and I think one of the things when it comes to trauma and thinking about like these big events, right? Like you see it a lot in like war movies, for example.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with how you feel and being brave. So as a leader, you could still be scared or stressed, but still be brave at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that is muddled up with people that they're not understanding the difference, right? And to Brian's point about being vulnerable has nothing to do with being brave.
You're absolutely right, Veronica. And also, Roxana, you made very good points there. I just want to comment that what will be even more helpful when leaders, when they're sharing their vulnerability, are saying, yes, I'm worried about it. I don't know all the answers, but I believe we can come together to some answers. I believe that together we will overcome. Because leaders, we expect from leaders to have degree of optimism. It's not a delusional optimism where, just rose-tinted glasses. It's about acknowledging the reality of the situation and show belief and trust in their teams. And this is what will lift all of us. Because even using words together has a significant impact on how we feel, how we behave. There was a very interesting study, I believe, by Stanford a few years ago, which looked at how people respond to work together. And they had two groups of people. In one group, they put each individual into a separate room. But before they did this, they said, look, you are sitting in a separate room, but you are taking part in a problem-solving activity where we all are working together. And then in another group, everyone was put in a separate room, and they were sure that they're working just for themselves. It's up to them to develop whatever solutions they could develop. And what was interesting that those people who were told that although they're physically separated, they are part of the joint effort, they're working together with others, they performed this task longer and created better solutions, more solutions, as compared for those to those people who thought they are left on their own devices. So even language that leaders can use can have an impact.
Yeah, and speaking of impact, this is a great segue to bridge over of how well people can work together, common languages, and impact. And everyone always that comes on the show, those of you that have not watched the show previously, we always see what our guests' impact energy is. And that's your preferred way that you actually want to contribute and put your energy. So we have our impact. Roxana and I actually have the same one. I know it's strange, over 1,000 different combinations. Imagine that. And so we're game changer strategists. And those of you that aren't aware, we're not necessarily going to go through all of it. But what that means is we are people that see the possibilities. We like to help transform the future. Probably this is the reason why we have the show, right, Roxana?
One of them.
And we like to make sense of things. And that's probably why we are so curious about all these different topics, because whatever is going to help invoke change and remove from the status quo, we get very curious of what's out there. And we're highly creative in a sense. Did I miss anything in the highlights of our dominant energies?
I think that's what it takes. I mean, it's the main energy. It's where we put our main focus and what gets us excited, right? Rather than depleted. Talking about, the level of energy. So Zoryna, how does that look for you?
Well, you can see here on the screen my GC index profile, and you can see that I'm 10 in red circle, which is implementer, and 7 in the blue circle, which stands for strategist. So my headline profile, I'm an implementer strategist. I think if scale was above 10, I probably would have scored more than 10 on implementer. But of course, there are limitations to every system. So what does it mean in my terms? It means that I am curious. I want to know why. I see the patterns. I'm able to connect the patterns. And also, I like to be active. I like to implement things what I learned into the practice. So I find it very easy to translate academia research into practical steps. I find it easy to devise strategy and action plans, make them happen, all those things. And of course, I am relatively high on the game changer as well, which is sort of turquoise, little bit color. There are 5. Which shows that
you can put up with people like us.
I'm on your heels, approaching somewhere. Well, I'm writing sci-fi. I'm writing other fiction and a lot of other stuff as an outlet for my creativity. So I was lucky through all my life. Everything I did, I was able to use my proclivities, all those areas where I find interesting, fascinating, easy for me to operate, where I make the most impact.
Yeah, if we actually looked at collective between the 3 of us, you help complete someone, like Roxana and myself, because we don't want to put any energy on those highly task-oriented things. We're more in the ideation and fluid space, right? When it starts to come like too much structure and rigidity, which I love one of the other GCologists, how he put that visual together, you help us create that more. And for people like us, because you have the game changer, you're able to step in that space of creative and fluidity where we are, to kind of play there with us in a little while, as I call it. Somebody that might have a lower one might not be as tolerant, especially with your 10 implementer. you will be like, come on, you two, let's get going, right?
Yeah,
when
exactly.
we're
The
brainstorming.
the deadlines and
Yeah.
the milestones and getting things done, right? That's
Well,
gonna be.
I think what helps me is a sense of curiosity. I'm curious about
Mhm.
all people, and I'm more curious about people who are different from me because I want to understand them. I want to work well with them. And my 10 implementer doesn't necessarily mean that I'm rushing off my feet to create processes and sort of do a lot of other stuff, but I'm able to conceptualize, to create a road path, action plan, to analyze, pull together a vision of how we can get there, practical steps, potential risks, all this stuff. But I also, because of curiosity for people, I love people, I like working with people, I love enabling, helping, supporting people, and this is where my implementer is.
And
I
you're
help.
hands-on.
Yes, I help them to become great at what they
Yeah.
want to become great.
What I'm looking at, thinking from this perspective of trauma-informed approach to leadership and then tapping into the collective intelligence. And we talked about how when we are traumatized, we're in that state of survival where we are definitely not our best creative selves because we are just focused on surviving. So if you think about how teams need to be creative and innovative right now, and starting from the trauma informed approach so that people understand that they have been traumatized and the effect of that on how they work, and then help them understand how they make their best impact and their best contribution so that we can talk about creativity again.
Mm. Well, there are many different ways how we can help people in the teams to understand each other and to create this sense of psychological safety where people are feeling comfortable being themselves and being comfortable with understanding that their impact will be different, their preferred way of doing things may be different. And that is actually their strengths rather than anything else. And the beauty of the team is that we all can come together and play together. And
Yeah.
when we acknowledge our uniqueness and all our contributions, this is one of the prerequisites of flourishing collective intelligence and also appreciating the emotional impact, turmoil, difficulties people may be experiencing right now. When people feel appreciated, acknowledged for what they are, and their preferences, for example, in this instance, for the ways to make an impact, when they're empowered to make this impact, it helps them feel safer. It helps them to become more involved and contribute more, make a better impact for the benefit of organization, which also will be very rewarding for them on their own.
And when we
Exactly.
talk about trauma and collective intelligence and really understanding impact, we talked about language, right? And this is a common language approach. You really start to understand why someone might get frustrated if they're not in their energy zone. And you probably have worked with people. I mean, I know I express it where if I'm not in my creative or I can't help create change, and any of you that have ever worked with me, that's where I'm in the zone, right? I want to push people to do something different and try different approaches and really try to push the needle of, what exists today. And if we're stagnant and you have people that may not be interested in that mode, or you have someone that might be an implementer like yourself that's not being able to show how they can build something great or really get into the how of things, right? And take action on a plan, and you get frustrated, it's not about you, it's about you and your energy not being able to be its true self.
Yeah.
And we become appreciative where we take the personalness out of it and we just understand where someone's energy wants to be. And that's such a different way to look at it. Things has nothing to do with personality. And I want to point this out for anybody that doesn't know is Roxanne and I have taken every single personality psychometric test out there, Strength Finder, and we are not the same. We are not the same. And you can even tell even on the show our personalities are different.
Exactly. Yeah.
But our impact energy is exactly the same. This is what I love to always bring up. And we're so gravitated toward this, and all the topics that we bring on the show is because it's all about people. And we can actually merge. Remember when we were having the bottom line conversation? You can actually have both in this because it's all about aligning to outcomes, which could be business outcomes, and address the people part at the same time. That's a win-win to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I am conscious of time, and obviously, we could be spending so much more time talking about this topic because also I think it's absolutely a must-have right now. It's not that's the thing. The people focus is not a nice to have anymore. It's a must-have for anyone who is thinking long term. I mean, okay, short term, we might have found ways in which we could survive up until this point. But if we're looking at long term, that's when high performance kicks in, and we all would like some high performance in place, I think. But if we're going to plan for that, then we need to plan for high performance focused on people. That's the discussion.
And I love what your focus on is, in the neuroscience and the other aspects of that versus just process. I always have this debate with people is where there's people on one fence says you put the processes in and then naturally will create these habits and action and behaviors. Well, I'm like, well, what if that falls flat? Or it doesn't even get started in the first place, right? It's a non-starter. I think there's a lot more to it, is what I always say. And we forget the intrinsic part, the inside of you. And all these things that you're talking about is what's actually happening underneath the covers, right? Not externally.
Yeah. Absolutely. And building on what you, Veronica and Roxana said, I just want to add that, yes, we have to think long term. And in thinking long term, we need to understand that it's not about survival, it's about flourishing. Flourishing for us as individuals and for our organization. Because survival is sort of very short term. You can live in the survival mode only for so long. It's not enough for us as humans. It's not enough for us as people who are leading our organizations. So the best investment we can make is in our people. In majority of organizations, the biggest sort of proportion of our budget is taken by salaries, by all human resources cost, when you think about it. So surely we want to make sure that this expense is giving us the best return possible, this investment. So when you think about it in more economical terms, then you will start thinking about, so how can we make it happen? And this is where neuroscience, behavior science, a lot of psychology, a lot of other science are coming together to help us understand each other. So we are working together better. And we understand and realize our own if you want, preferences for our energy, what make us the most productive and impactful in the workplace.
I love it. I mean, people, process, technology, we tend to naturally gravitate to the tangibles, the easy stuff. The hardest thing is that people equation, and you have to be patient.
Yeah.
You have to take the time to learn, because working on that is different. I always say I believe in bringing the benefits of life coaching in organizations, because what do you do, when we talk about personal transformation and collective transformation? Everyone is different, and who's helping them go through it? If you're stuck, right? You have personal trauma. That's one individual. What are you going to do in a meeting? Right? I mean, how does that work? And so it's all of these things that we have to be very cognizant of. What are we putting in place as a business to help individually and collectively?
Mm-hmm. There's the most recent study from Google on startups, and they discovered that 65% of startups that don't fail because of technology or systems issues. They fail because of people issues.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I think, and that's just on startups. 65%, that's a lot.
That's huge.
That fail. The rest, not to mention that they have issues. So how are you going to solve those issues so you don't
when you start building
to business?
When you start growing and you get bigger and it gets more complex, simplicity of startup mode isn't sustainable, right? Yeah. Now, I know that we're approaching the end, and we probably want to wrap things up. Is you have something that you wanted to share for others to connect with you. So we want to put that caption up.
Yeah, we are. Okay, Zoryna,
there we
tell
go.
us about this.
Yes, it's actually my new program that I developed. It's a training program, which it could be done online, so people wherever in the world can access it. And this program has been accredited by the Institute of Leadership and Management in the UK as the one that is has a high quality and is very successful in equipping leaders with the insights from neuroscience, behavior science, which are required for making change happen successfully and making change stuck. So if people are interested, get in touch with me. I will get you more information about it.
Yeah, definitely. All of you that are watching live right now or the replay, definitely check that out. We're also, after we get off air, we do put the links in for you to access as well. I love it. This is the stuff that really is going to matter at the end of the day. So when we talk about thriving and really taking us to the future, this is it. This is the secret sauce.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Veronica, what's up in your world?
You know what? I was like, what do I have? So right now, I just say subscribe to my weekly events and see what's coming up. I'm getting organized to what's next when it comes to impact energy in transformations and really creating breakthrough change. So stay tuned. What I will be talking about, it's probably going to be related to a specific agile framework and transformation, so we can connect the dots of how that works. Again, connecting the people to the processes.
All right. Okay. In my world, it's the Lead for Legacy League, which is the global online program for management and leadership development. So I'm bringing mid to senior managers and small business CEOs together. So people who lead people in teams right now, and helping them, first of all, understand some of the techniques and strategies that they can use with their teams, as well as understand more about themselves, because that's what we start with. So we talk about emotional intelligence and team development stages and leadership styles and all kinds of stuff that help them understand what the pressure is on them right now. Oh, we lost Zoryna again. So okay, I think she's back. Okay,
and I'm gonna put a plug about your Lead for Legacy, and this is why, coming from the Agilist here. Those of you that are in management, especially going through these transformations, most of these leadership programs that are expensive and are usually for the higher leadership, because of the cost. This is affordable, getting the same thing that you get in the executive leadership coaching programs. So take advantage of this, folks.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I created it, to be affordable, because the problem is also the managers in the middle, right?
Yeah, they get
A lot of people
forgotten. I
leave.
see it
I
all
mean,
the time.
They get forgotten, and people leave the manager. So how about we keep the talent in the organization by helping the manager? So I'll put the link. It will be in the description. All of our links will be in the description of this particular episode, of course.
And what's next week?
Zoryna,
Do we
thank
have
you
that?
Next week? No, we don't have it. Oh, yes, we do. I forgot. I put it in here.
I was like, I thought I saw it there.
Yeah. It really ties in very nicely with what we discussed today as well, and with our profile, Veronica, which is the same, and talk about why personality does not predict performance, because there's a lot of other elements involved when we talk about performance. And one of them is, are you aware of the trauma you've been in?
Yeah. And this is what the show is about. It's really connecting the personal side to professional. And so everything that we talk about is always related to people. That's what we're about. And hopefully we start changing the game in organizations. And what you're doing, Zoryna, is awesome, because it's shaping the future. One, to make better leaders and just better people.
Thank you, Veronica. And thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. It's fantastic, and I thoroughly enjoyed this experience.
Well, you're going to have to come back again and have fun with us. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.